So we'll turn it into a nice takeaways document. And again, this is Camille Grant here at Mayfield. Generative AI, ChatGPT has been all the rage in the press, news, et cetera. The objective out of today's call is really to distill and unpack some of the content into more meaningful, let's say, insights for what CIOs, CTOs, and those who are driving innovation and technology efforts in your organizations to understand how to actually make use of this new technology in a practical and effective way. We're joined with two great presenters today who are going to lead the conversation. Adam Goldberg is at OpenAI. He's the head of the Azure OpenAI Enablement team. He's been super busy these days. So Adam, thanks for taking time. I know you're on the press tour, so to speak, meaning you're out pitching all the time these days, probably getting all sorts of great questions. So I'm going to presume you've got a well-honed presentation for sure. You've probably handled all questions. You're turning into a chat GPT all by yourself, I'm sure. And then good friend Anju Gupta from Northwestern Mutual is also joining us. Anju is leading the data science and analytics effort at Northwestern. She was previously at Enterprise Holdings and at Syngenta and Monsanto, been leading innovation and discovery of new technologies. I think you and Anju talked about a year and a half ago. You were already down the GPT path then. So I asked Anju to join and share some best practices of how a large-scale organization is actively implementing these large language models and dealing with the science, the technology, and the business process of it as well. So with that, Adam, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to let you share your content. And everybody who's joined, thank you, first of all, for joining. And as well, we're going to use the Q&A section for asking your questions. So go ahead and type your questions anytime you've got them, and we'll do our best to get to those as quickly as possible. So Adam, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to be here, everybody. So again, Adam Goldberg with OpenAI, joined about a year and a half ago. It has been a great ride. We've been busy for the last year and a half. We've gotten really busy in the last few months. So super excited to be here. I am sure you're going to have lots of questions. Definitely drop them in the chat window. I am going to try to cover a disproportional amount of good content with announcements in the last 2 weeks. I actually spent some time last night updating my deck to make sure you guys get your full nickel's worth today. So I'm going to go fast, ask questions. If there's important ones, we'll field them as we go. If not, we'll definitely leave time for Q&A afterwards. I know you're going to have lots of questions. So let me tell you a tiny bit about myself, and I think that'll kind of map into a little bit of kind of what we're doing today. So I've been in enterprise sales for about 23 years. I started my career in the early days of voice over IP in the enterprise. I was an integrator in the year 2000, selling the Cisco Call Manager at the birth of voice over IP in the enterprise. I then went to work at Cisco in 2005. I was there for 7 years. Towards the end of my time there, I kind of moved into the smart buildings, smart cities world before we called it IoT. Did that for a while, got recruited to be VP of sales at a startup, IoT startup, did that for a while. Then landed at Pivotal, the guys who were making Cloud Foundry at the time, so pre-Kubernetes, Docker containers and container orchestration. And then in 2016, I joined Microsoft. And although Azure had been around for a while, it was really finally ready for the enterprise. And that was a lot of fun. I was there for 5 years until I joined about a year and a half ago. So why do I tell you all of that? I think if I look back at my career arc, I don't think I knew this for a while, but I really like early markets. I like things that are going through a transformation, whether it's voice moving over to the data network, whether it's buildings, the physical and digital world getting connected, whether it's containers as new ways to host applications and container orchestration, or just the fundamental move to cloud. Like, I like things that are in a transformative state versus steady state. Some people love steady state. That is not me. So let's talk about what's been going on, right? So the last decade, I think this quote is almost 12 years old right now. Mark Andreessen's famous quote, "Software is eating the world." We've all seen it. Mark was pretty spot on, right? Like, every company has become a technology company in some form or fashion. Well, I'll tell you today, and perhaps maybe super obvious, and I say the next decade, I mean, it started a little while ago and it's going hyper fast right now, but you are going to find large language models are going to eat software. You can quote me on that one. We'll see if that one becomes as famous as Mark's. I don't know if it will, but you are finding that, like, AI and in particular these large language models are fundamentally redefining the essence of what software is. And I'll take you through some examples of that today. So that puts us on this next wave of transformation, this AI transformation. And oops, let's go back. There we go. Okay, cool. And I think this AI transformation is really different, both with the speed that it's moving and the fact that it is truly presenting itself as a platform that you can build on. And I think that will become really meaningful as you look forward to what this means for your organization. So let's talk about when I say a platform, like what do I mean, right? So at the most basic level, you have models, right? And if you know or don't know what we do, right, we're most known for being the GPT guys. The P part of GPT is pre-trained. We train models with capabilities and data that can do different things. And we present those to you in the form of an API. So this is not about data scientists or machine learning engineers training a model for you. This isn't about you growing something, in yourself. This is like a build buy decision. You're choosing to buy or consume an AI API, and think of us as like an AI, SaaS-based AI API provider, right? So we have different models. Chat GPT, we're obviously very well known for now. GPT-4 that came out a couple of weeks ago. DALL-E, there's all different types of models that do different things, but you have a model at the most basic level. And then the most common question I get from people is, well, you have these great models, but I need to fine tune the model so that it can be like what I need it to be because my company is unique. And fine tuning is a thing. We have a fine tuning endpoint. People definitely do fine tune, but most people, when they're saying fine tuning, they're actually using fine tuning the way some people use Kleenex to generically mean tissues. And really, high 90% of the time, what people are really saying is, I know ChatGPT has a lot of knowledge, but I need it to have my knowledge that we've created or we've purchased or we have. And that's where embeddings come in. And you have your ability to bring your corpuses of data privately for just your use, not for my use, not for other customers' use, privately to bring that to the solution. So you couple a model with our embeddings capability. And all of a sudden, you start to have your data with like the robust capabilities of what the model can do. But I always caution people, especially startups that I'm talking to, is like, don't think of my models as your differentiation. You have to have a clear use case for why you're looking to bring AI into this. Are you looking to extend capabilities to an existing platform? Are you looking to create something new? What's your distribution model, right? If it's an existing platform, it may be an upsell or maybe existing features that you're baking it in. But you still need compelling end user experiences, right? Which AI may be the direct enabler of if it's a conversational front end to an application. But you really have to think through all of that. And I would say that my models can be a huge differentiation for you if you're using them proficiently, and we're helping you do that. That is enormous. But you really have to think of this full stack to get the most value out of it. And I flash this up here. This is an eye chart. This is not meant for you to necessarily digest all of this. But when I talk about my models being available in an API, what can you do with that API? What are the capabilities? And here is just a non-exhaustive list of the types of things that you can do, right? You can generate data. You can summarize data. You can extract sentiment. You can extract entities, right? You can make recommendations. You can find things that are relevant. You can cluster things. You can do natural language to code, natural language to SQL. You can give it code and ask it to fix bugs. You can have a conversational interface. You can now with GPT-4, you can give it an image and have the model understand what that image is. And we'll talk about that as we go. Or you can have speech to text and have things transcribed and translated. There's all these different capabilities that are just a simple API call away. So let's spend a second here and talk about the infamous GPT-4 that was released 2 weeks ago. I just want to leave you with this one image because everyone's like, how much better is it? What makes it different? And it's one of those things like when you know, but I love this image from our announcement because the green is the indication of the enhanced capabilities, the enhanced knowledge that the model has. So if you've read articles or you've heard some of the hyperbolic comments around this thing passed the bar, or this thing passed the medical exam, or this thing did that, like this is what people are referencing with the like industry standard benchmarks of how you evaluate this stuff. The knowledge of what the model can do is off the chart, like never been seen before. And not only does it have more knowledge, but by training it with new data and new techniques and more compute, new capabilities emerge with the model, what it can do with the data and its understanding and relationship between things. So it becomes super cool. So let's take a look at what those things look like. So I'm going to use my friends at Microsoft as a good example, right? OpenAI and Microsoft partner deeply. Microsoft has been off to the races baking GPT-4 into their products for a while now. And they've taken a couple different approaches. One of them is to AI enable an existing portfolio stuff they have. So for those of you who are Microsoft Teams users, they created Teams Premium, which has a whole slew of AI capabilities. Their Nuance team added it in. The Power Platform, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents, Viva. They most recently announced Microsoft Copilot. These are all like AI enabled in my mind, right? They're existing products, existing platforms. They're in market. They're valued. They're now adding AI capabilities either visibly or invisibly to unlock new capabilities for you. And that becomes a buy decision, right? Build, buy. You're choosing to buy a piece of technology that does what you need. Then there's what the category of stuff that I call AI native. AI native, a great example of that is GitHub Copilot. Like GitHub Copilot, which is like the plugin for a developer's environment, an IDE, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the Codex models or GPT-4 that sits underneath it. There would literally be no purpose for Copilot if these models that can help you, predict code and generate code and understand code, if the model wasn't there, GitHub Copilot wouldn't exist. So yeah, there's a software layer with the UI and maybe some databases, and they've done some really cool stuff there to make it work really well. But the model is what makes this thing work, and that's why I call it AI native, right? That they reimagined a business process with models first. But the super cool part is the same models that they use to build their stuff are available to you through AI APIs, and they're available on OpenAI.com, or in this example on the Azure OpenAI service. So nothing really is proprietary here. It's the same models that you can use to build your thing. So it truly is a build buy discussion for you. So let's spend a quick second talking about like one of my favorite features that got announced with GPT-4, the vision capability. And this is still in like pre-alpha. It's making its way out right now. I'm going to give you a really cool example here. So this is a picture I found on the internet. It happens to be a Louis Vuitton purse that many of you are probably familiar with. And I went and I asked the model, describe this bag in detail, describe its shape, its fabric, its design, anything else, be descriptive and be excited, right? So this is not just understanding what's in the image, but taking the power of GPT-4 to actually put that into words. And what did it produce? And I'll let you kind of glance through this. When I showed this to the Louis Vuitton people, they almost fell over. I mean, this is like a pretty good pitch of what this thing is, and you can ask all types of questions about size, and you can do whatever you need. Here, I want to do something kind of fun for us today, but it can describe this thing in like amazing detail. So let's take a look at one more that's kind of fun. I happen to be a big basketball fan here, New York Knicks fan, but who doesn't love MJ? So I said, describe this iconic image, provide the details about what makes it unique, right? It understands not only this is Michael Jordan, he's wearing a Bulls jersey, understands the body positioning, but then it takes the knowledge that it has and it knows that it's Air Jordan, and it knows that that's the signature Jumpman pose, right? Like super valuable, right? And then it goes on to really answer what I asked was, how does he make it unique, right? And it kind of goes to explain like the dominance and impact that Jordan had. And I just thought this was like a super great example. These are fun ones. The applicability from a business standpoint is going to be off the charts because this can do optical character recognition. You could hand this thing a flow chart. You can it can gobble up like almost anything. So from a business process standpoint, it's going to be a very powerful tool for you. So let's pivot. This is what I threw in my deck last night for you because I figured I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't touch upon this. So I snuck a couple slides in here that my Mayfield friends haven't seen, but this will be good. So this is, we made an announcement less than a week ago, ChatGPT plugins. So this is starting with the ChatGPT consumer service. So either the free one or if you pay $20 a month for Plus, these features are rolling out to the Plus users. Okay. So we announced this idea of plugins. So instead of a model that has knowledge that can do stuff, which is awesome, now the model can invoke plugins to go do more stuff. And we released first-party plugins, which I'm going to tell you about, and then third-party plugins, which I think is, kind of if you use the iPhone App Store analogy, that is the App Store. We'll talk about that in a second. So the most popular one that people have been waiting for is browsing, right? So now the model, if it can't answer a question or you're looking for current information, it can go browse the internet for you. So let's take a look at what that on my computer wants to do something. There we go. So following on my basketball theme here, as my Knicks are about to make the playoffs, right? I asked the model, what are the Knicks' chances of making the playoffs this year? And what happens is it not only goes out to the internet looking for the information, but in the background, it creates like a headless browser that goes and reads the information that it finds, right? So we use the Bing API, it goes and gets this information, and then it reported back to me that, there's we're going to probably be in the 5th seed, 80% chance of that, blah, blah, blah. And then I go on to ask the question, is there a chance it could slip to the 6th spot? And it goes and it browses that. It comes back with the fact that the Nets are nipping at our heels and, we'll see what happens. There's only like 7 games left and stuff like that. So then I say to this thing like, okay, create me a table showing the playoff standings, if including the play-in round. If you're a basketball fan, the top 6 teams make the playoffs and 4 teams make the play-in. And it created this thing dynamically for me here. And it showed me what's what, and it gave me a description of what's going on. And then it went even further and showed me what the matchup would look like if the season ended today of the play-in round. Like, super cool, right? This is not about giving me a bunch of links that I go self-service. This is about like giving me an answer. So this is pretty cool. You can see the applicability of that. This is where things get like super cool, mind bender. Like I could spend the whole call just talking about this. So another plugin that we built, we call Code Interpreter because it's kind of the biggest catch-all. So we automatically spin up in the back end of our system a sandbox, a secure sandbox, firewalled off, blah, blah, blah. And when you ask the model questions that it can answer itself, especially things with very complex mathematics, what does it do? It understands that it needs help. It goes to that code interpreter, and the code interpreter understands what you're asking for, and it goes and spins up the Python code. Python is amazing at math. It's the language of data scientists. And it goes and spins up the Python code and converts your natural language question and converts it into code. So in this case, I said my property is 75 feet by 130 feet. My house takes up 50 by 100 on the lot. What is my lot coverage? It shows you the formula for how to calculate lot coverage. It explains to you what it's going to go do. And then it goes and it does the math for you and it gives you the answer. Well, then I come back to it and I was like, okay, cool. Well, what if my driveway's 10 by 100 as well? And it knows to take into account the house already, right? It's smart enough to understand the context. And then it goes and shows you a different formula that shows you the house plus the driveway is lot coverage, shows you the math, goes and reruns it, pulls the number it ran before, and gives me an updated number of what my lot coverage is. Super cool. You can also do things like you can upload files. You can upload a CSV and the model will parse it. It'll understand if there's errors. It's like an ETL on steroids. It'll get your data all cleaned up and ready for you to use. You can ask it to visualize stuff. You can do all types of things. The last plugin that we built, and this one we open sourced, is a retrieval plugin. And this plugin will allow you to bring your data to the ChatGPT solution. So you can either bring data you have, you own, you've created, public data, whatever. If you want to bring it into the model to let it use it, you can. Or my favorite feature that comes along with this is a memory feature where you can actually use ChatGPT where it can actually remember the conversations that you're having if you want it to. So it can build a history that you can use later. So the model has like uber context about what you care about, and you're not starting over when you create a new chat session. So this is something, again, this kind of comes along free with the plugin. But the world of opportunity sits with third-party plugins, and we launched with a bunch, which I'll show you in a second. But imagine your ability to go as far as a vendor wants you to go. So imagine your open table, and I happen to live in northern New Jersey. Let's say I'm traveling to Salt Lake City, Utah, and I want to know what the popular cuisines of Salt Lake City, Utah is. ChatGPT may give me that answer. I'm like, okay, can you recommend restaurants that have availability at 5 p.m. for 4 people? And it will recognize what you're asking based on the plugins that you've selected. It'll likely go to the open table one, and it will go poke their APIs and return that information for you and allow you to book a reservation right there. All types of plugins, travel, you're going to see a tsunami of plugins. These are just the ones that we launched with. The one I'll point you to on the bottom right there, Zapier. What's cool about that one is that's like an Uber plugin because that plugs into like 500 different apps. So if you want to like send an email at the end after you create your reservation, or you want to create a travel thing, you want to send it, you'd use Zapier, you'd wire that up to your email to then go take action. So that's plugins. I really wanted to land that with you today, because I think that's going to be super impactful. And then I want to turn the corner here for the last big section I have before I bring it to closure, is DALL-E 2, right? DALL-E 2 is text to image, and we have a new experimental model that we've been having a bunch of artists play with that we're getting ready, and we'll release to the world soon enough. But the experimental version is fun, and I'm going to give you some examples of artwork that I've created. I'm a DALL-E junkie. I think my parents would be so proud I'm finally putting my art minor to use. So if you've used DALL-E, then you know what this is like, and you're just seeing better quality than you saw before. But you put a text prompt in, and you get an image out. So this is an old, wise, annoyed boomer goldfish in its fishbowl, staring at a camera, taking a picture, portrait, 8K, studio lighting, fisheye lens. And I thought fisheye lens with a goldfish was a funny pun. And it produced that thing, which my marketing team liked so much, it actually made our Instagram account. So that's like a slow, small win. Or a crisp, detail-rich photo of a 1980s McDonald's taken from a parking lot at night with bright indoor lights, film lighting, 8K. Like that, it's pretty good, right? Or this one, I happened to be in Zurich. I was thinking about my red-eye flight home, and I created a tired businessman sitting lonely at the airport, nursing his beer while he awaits his red-eye flight home, a detailed photo, dim lighting, studio lighting, bokeh effect, and I don't know, it's pretty accurate. But then it's really fun to play with like other styles. So here I was, I'm a comic book fan. I decided to play with like a pen and ink style. And here I wanted like a guy who was like beaten up and broken glasses and swollen, and it, created this, maybe a little rough. Or more lighthearted, where I wanted to create this OpenAI man kind of superhero, descending down to the city and glowing, and thought that was kind of cool. And last but not least, I play a lot of poker with my buddies, and I was thinking about poker. We tend to play on Thursdays, and I was thinking about this, and I decided to keep that same style and have this intense guy getting ready to make his bet, which my buddies thought was pretty funny. So anyway, these are just some examples of the DALL-E experimental. The quality is going way up. So I want to kind of rotate for home here and talk a little bit like how you get started. That's the question I get asked most by whether it's technologists or executives. Like, how do we get started? Well, first and foremost, like, it has to start with use cases. This should not be like, there's this amazing technology, how can we use it? I think that's part of it. But you should be thinking of things in a very simple construct. Are you looking to AI enable a business process, either a new business process or something that you have already? Are you looking to optimize a business process using AI? Or are you looking to use AI to deliver a magical end user experience, which we see like these conversational front ends that are so popular now with ChatGPT? And the reality is, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. You really have to answer the question for yourself. Are you AI enabling something, or are you building something AI native, a new experience that didn't exist before? But I think this construct will really help you kind of think about stuff. At the same time, your technologists will begin to explore this, and they will they will be looking at the documentation of how to execute on use cases. I think you will meet in the middle as to kind of the art of the possible. So I'm going to leave you with just a couple parting thoughts that I think are like most relevant for where we are in this like amazing, I don't want to say hype cycle. We are in a hype cycle, but it's like extremely real, right? Like this is happening now, like right now. And I'm going to sound hyperbolic. I don't mean to. I'm trying to be like as direct as I can be. This is happening now. This is not going to be, let's use 2023 to learn and we'll go do something in 2024. This is happening now, like the first half of this year, people are going to be building their 1.0 and 2.0 products. And the cost of experimentation is shockingly low. And the time to value with a smart developer and someone who knows your data can build you a prototype over the weekend and demo to executives on Monday. Like we are talking about an ability to go very fast here and almost make stuff that's disposable, which is a double-edged sword, but like you can go really quick and feel confident that you're not pouring money down the drain. And really the last thought I'll leave you with is like this AI technology, like we've all been focused on digital transformation the last 5 or 7 years. That's been very real. It's been very meaningful. But this is going to be the real digital transformation. This is going to have an outsized impact versus anything that you've done over the last 5 or 7 years, as far as transforming how your business operates inside, how you present yourself to customers, and how you present yourself to employees. So, so thank you for letting me go through that material so quickly. I covered a lot. I wanted to make sure we got it all out there. And thank you. Great to be here.
Great. Thank you, Adam. So let me have Anju go through her content. People that are asking questions, thank you for your questions. I normally try to do this as interactive as possible. We've got so many folks on the call right now. So let me just let Anju go through her content, which I think will answer some of the questions, and then we'll come back to the questions live. But keep the questions coming. So Anju, all yours. And while you're a Knicks fan, Adam, Anju is an Ohio State football fan. So don't mess with her on this. So.
Yes, no, thank you, Camille. And thank you very much, Adam. This is great. Before I start to share my deck, I just want to level set a little bit around generative, pre-trained transformer, because you heard a lot about GPT. So when you think about generative, it's a type of model, right? So when you think about generative, it's the ability to generate the next word based on all possible combinations. And this could be in trillions. So that is the beauty of GPT models, that it can run that many combinations at the same time. Mm-hmm. Pre-trained, meaning it's pre-trained on a lot of text from the internet, roughly 175 billion to be precise. It has not happened before. Transformer, that's a deep neural network. It's a class of models that it's a new type of network architecture that Google released almost in 2017. And some of us have been playing around with that architecture, but never used it to the extent of the training that Adam and his team has been able to do. So it's what it is. It's a system of 8 models with varying complexity. When you think about the neural nets that we run, it may go from 10 to 16, maybe 20 layers the most. This one has, again, based on what I'm reading externally, Adam, this one has roughly 96 different layers. So again, it's the amount of complexity that they've been able to put in around ChatGPT and the amount of simplicity by which you are able to interact. That is completely mind-blowing with this tech. So let me share my deck. Can everybody see? Can you see?
Yep.
Okay. So when you think about this slide, and if you look at the person on the right-hand corner, this is what I feel like most of the time these days. This is me in the corner. I know I've learned how to surf. I know how to do AI. I have my surfing board, which means I have the tools and techs needed to run my AI engine. And then here I am seeing a big surf coming, and I'm questioning whether I am or my organization is ready to do the aerial. We literally want to do the aerial, but you need an enterprise movement to get there. So this is what I call, we are definitely in the swell period of AI. We want to battle the wave. We want to duck dive. We want to do the backhand, flips and strokes in the end as well. But that means Anju really needs to be prepared and needs to learn as fast as she can to get the enterprise ready as well. A hint of this type, literally a hint or flavor of this type of discovery happened to all of us almost a decade ago. If you heard about Jeff Hinton, he and his team came in, did the ImageNet challenge with deep learning solution that was unprecedented for those days. And I still remember how excited I was. Mm-hmm. Since then, deep learning became the cornerstone for most of the AI discoveries and business outcomes. What I see today with GPT advances, that completely dwarfs the excitement I had in 2012. I've been leading data science teams, as Camille mentioned, and AI teams for past 15 plus years. Have been able to deploy many production AI algorithms that has helped shape agriculture, chemical company, automotive, and now insurance industry. Over the years, I've learned quite a bit and developed a robust framework for AI adoption within a large enterprise. I work closely with regulatory bodies, especially as part of Monsanto. I had to ensure an ethical and unbiased framework for what we do in AI. And there's a lot of questions that are coming from all of you around the bias and ethics. Are the regulatory bodies ready, or are the companies ready? Not a whole lot, but we collectively across all the industries will develop a framework, I have no doubt, right? So today I'll share a framework that we adopted for running AI enablement in large enterprise, and then also a framework of how we are quickly pivoting with a framework to adopt for generative AI use cases with our business leaders. And then I'll end a little bit with my thoughts. So this is the framework. This is the framework that I commonly use with our business partners. It's called Eisenhower Decision Matrix. If you haven't used it for your AI use cases, I would highly recommend using this. It's based on an impact and complexity matrix. So you've got impact on one axis and you've got complexity. So we use AI enablement channels with our key business questions, where the question that we are trying to answer is either highly complex and has high significant impact. This ensures that we are using our AI-enabled resources, especially the headcount, in an optimized fashion. And we have gotten significant traction across all the industries that I've worked with our business partners, and enables us to have a true and meaningful collaboration to drive the outcomes. But as you think about the generative AI or GPT models and how it has started to gain traction across the enterprise, every industry, we are pivoting to use a new framework to assess our potential use cases. So this one has this old Eisenhower decision matrix, which is the impact and complexity. Now, this is a new framework that at least I have been tracking in my head on how to work with our business partners around this generative AI model and how to assess the use cases. So in this particular framework, and this is developed by Barak Turovsky, he's an ex-Googler that I know very well, and he's the one who came up with, I've modified for my own purposes a little bit, but this is how we hope to assess our use cases for ChatGPT or GPT-4. I am most excited about GPT-4. ChatGPT was excellent, and it is still excellent, but GPT-4 really addresses, if you're truly thinking about corporation and enterprise, GPT-4 addresses a lot of bias and ethical concerns that one could potentially have with ChatGPT. So in this case, we look for use cases that needs high fluency, but maybe okay with low accuracy. So if you think about it, I listed some of the use cases. So when you think about acknowledging life events, especially in the insurance industry, or developer assist, I'm not going to write children's book, but this is the framework. If you're really looking for a high fluency type of use case, then ChatGPT or GPT-4 is the way to go. Whereas if you're looking for high fluency and high accuracy, so let's say I'm building a personalized recommendation engine, I am going to use my internal AI ML models, but as the personalized recommendation engine spits out the outcomes, the fluency is needed. So that's why I personally put it on top of high fluency and high accuracy. Can it write mathematical models? Yes, it can, but not to the extent that the ML engineers or ML scientists can write it for your typical use cases. It has definitely the Wolfram Alpha plugin now that helps us accelerate significantly. But I also feel like, we owe it as the head of AIs for different teams and different companies. We definitely owe it to our organization to provide a channel for generative AI knowledge sharing, and also ensure that we are building a robust bias and ethics framework as we start to navigate through this. And last but not the least, this is my favorite quote from Jeff Hinton, who said, this is simply the beginning. And Jeff Hinton, we call him the godfather of deep learning. He rightly points out, it's a caterpillar waiting to become a butterfly. We have seen these GPT models, that's a mouthful, Adam, which have been constantly getting upgraded with the speed and pace that is unprecedented. And that's why, we are all trying to play a catch up with this. Will there be a moment when we'll be ahead of it? I'm not sure, because the development and advancement is happening very fast, starting out from an earlier version of these models in 2018 to an accelerated pace of discovery from 2022 to March 2023, from November to March. GPT 3.5 came, GPT-4 came, all the retriever plugins that came in earlier this week. The latest version of these models are addressing bias and ethical concerns than its earlier version. So I am very confident in the ability of these models more than ever before. But I also feel like we need to be cautious as we step into the next phase. The reinforcement learning with human feedback loop has been a significant advances that we need to be cognizant of. And I also feel like with the advent of these models, we'll end up seeing a significant convergence of varied sciences in the next decade. decade, which will essentially enable us to unlock new innovative and creative heights. For example, doctors currently have to rely on specialists across different fields to obtain basic answers for the subjects that they're not specialized in. However, with the advent and invent of these high-powered GPT models, different streams of sciences will start to converge towards specialists within their scientific fields. This will enable us as experts to answer more complex questions within our field of our own, pushing our ability to discover at a completely new level that we may not have seen before. And with this regenerated and augmented ability, I also feel like we're gonna reach soaring heights of inventions and discoveries at a pace that may have been unprecedented in the past. And I could potentially be wrong, but convergence of sciences will truly lead to inventions and discoveries much faster than what we have seen in the last 5 decades. I also constantly hear that GPT models has been a staggering loss of humanity, which is quite interesting. The Twitter feed does show you that. However, I do tend to see it as an accelerating win for humanity, where we collectively start to understand the complex world around us in ways that we may not have anticipated before. So again, driving for trusted and ethical AI is key. We need to keep that in mind. One thing, if you are leading, if you are within a large company, make sure you have put together a related model policy, either large language model or a model policy. We are doing that, and release it to your organization. Keep an eye on the ethics and bias. I underline that. You need to figure out a way to adopt a framework so that there is noise as well. You are containing the noise and providing a right channel to respond to that as quickly as possible. Also try to create an open platform. I'm calling it an open platform, but it could be a place where people can ask the questions, because I also feel like they have new ways of thinking about how to use ChatGPT. So prompt engineering word is coming quite a bit into the industry now. So make sure you have a channel to collect input from employees within your organization so that you know where it can and cannot make a difference. I do fundamentally believe that reinforcement learning with human feedback will be each company's differentiator as they start to tap into this. And again, test it out. This one is quite interesting. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Yamal.
Great. Thank you, Anju. Thank you, Adam, as well. So there's a number of great questions here in the Q&A section. There's a lot to deal with this concept of bias. And you had mentioned the human feedback loop there, Anju, and yours. So I know, Adam, you answered some of the questions, but maybe just at a high level, you guys could talk about sort of the bias concept and setting up guardrails and really getting in front of, let's say, the inference possibilities with these engines. So, do
you want to take that?
Go ahead, Anju. I'll hop in.
Okay. Yeah. So I think what I would highly recommend, which we do that quite a bit, make sure you're working with your legal team, your privacy team, and your government affairs team to really set the stage for what bias and ethics policies your company will adopt as you drive your AI models into production, including a plugin with ChatGPT. The reason I bring up the RHLF, which is reinforcement human learning feedback, that's again a mouthful term that GPT models have, but make sure you are paying enough attention to your RHLF, where if there are bias and ethical concerns coming up as the GPT models start to respond, you have a way to address it with your SWAT team of legal, again, folks from legal, folks from government affairs, and privacy, and then able to answer those and start to adopt as it comes.
So there's a question here from Shyam around security, privacy risks. Shyam, I wanted to jump in. I've unmuted you, or I can unmute you here if you'd like to talk live. that having to deal with NIST and some of the risk framework. I don't know if you can see the question here, Adam. Any thoughts about kind of the security issues that are happening?
Yeah, I mean, so usually in the when it comes to like privacy and security, like at a base level, and I think I answered one of the questions earlier. I'm sure this probably came up a couple times. When you're building on our API, the prompt, which is the thing you put in, the completion, the thing you get out, embeddings, which is your documents, or fine-tuned models, which you create custom models, all of that is opt-out by default. No one's doing anything with your data. We're not going to retrain on it. No other customers are going to have it. Like, your data is your data. From a security standpoint, we've obviously take security, very, it's a very important thing to us. Obviously, offering ourselves as a SaaS-based API, that is critical. When you offer that plugin framework, doing that securely is critical. And some of the largest companies in the world building on our platform, you can imagine the security inspections that we go through. Thus, we've obtained SOC 2 Type 1, Type 2. We recently achieved HIPAA, and we'll continue to pursue certifications. It's a matter of just like baking that in from the ground up. Are there new attack vectors? Absolutely. There always is, right? As things, when they started to get connected to the internet, that happened as well. So it is a new frontier. I always jokingly say, if I wasn't working at OpenAI, but I still had the knowledge that I'd have, I'd start a security startup company based on large language models. I think there's just like a massive opportunity there.
So George Lato, also a Knicks fan, was asking about what are some of the next. I mean, where's this going? So we watched sort of this fast pace from 3 to 3.5 to 4. These language models continuing, the plugins. I mean, where do you see what's the roadmap? And George, I've turned on your mic if you want to ask your question live.
No, you've captured it well, Gamil. Thank you. And Adam quickly had a fantastic game last night. I'm encouraged.
40 points, baby. That was with our star point guard on the bench. That's what you want to see. Yeah, so I'm going to give you an answer and a non-answer. We don't really talk about roadmap, but what I will say is we have sprinted to get all this stuff out there, and now it's like taking it to the next level, right? GPT-4 is out there. It is now getting it like widely adopted so everyone can get it, right? We got to roll that out, got to scale the infra to handle it. I think there's a bunch of paradigm shifts, right? One of the things we didn't talk about, but that you hear people talk about, like a context window, how much information you can put in and get out of the model. We have the market leading context window before with 4,000 tokens. And that was good, not great, but that was the best that was out there. With ChatGPT, we enhanced that up to, I think it's up to 8,000. With GPT-4, we offer you an option now. You can do up to 32,000 tokens. So you can literally, put in 50 pages of text if you needed to. And if you couple that with the vision capabilities, all of a sudden, where people used to have to do pre-processing before handing something to the model, where if they had a PDF, they had to scrape it. Well, when this vision stuff is rolled out, imagine feeding a 50-page PDF with images and graphs and tables and text into the model, have the model parse all of that, and then go take the action that you're asking it. So I think the next step is actually a little bit less about what we're going to deliver and more about the use cases that are going to emerge. The second thing I would say is we've rolled out these plugins, we've introduced these plugins. Then the next step is getting this open so everyone can experience them as an end user, and getting 1,000 flowers to bloom with developers, which is like a massive focus of ours right now. Getting tens or hundreds of thousands of plugins out there over time. And we have to figure out what the right way to operate an app store is, right? Security to review apps and things like that. But nurturing that so that people can get the value, so we can get the feedback loop as to kind of where we need to go next. I'd say those are probably the two things I'd point to.
Great. And then Fred Pond had a question for you, Anju, about some use cases that maybe you could describe. I don't know if you want to describe what's going on at Northwestern Mutual without sharing anything confidentially, but how are you actively using some of these models for real use cases inside of your business? And Fred, I've turned on your mic if you want to ask more to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you guys are a premier insurance and investment firm, global, very highly viewed by all of your members and participants. So it'd be interesting to know where you're kind of poking around, if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are poking around. This is a technology that you cannot not poke around. So we are poking around, but there's enough. I feel like if you look at externally as well, there's enough use cases that are available for insurance industry. When you think about Morgan Stanley, they've got a full strategic partnership with OpenAI. And their use cases have been very interesting for the wealth management piece, where they're really, when I think about ChatGPT and how it's going to get used within the industry, it's more about being able to service the clients in a meaningful way. What I tend to admire there's multiple things to be admired about the GPT models, but the ones that come in with the ChatGPT, it's the fluency and how it responds in a human-like behavior. It's highly authoritative and the content is very well articulated. So that, as humans, we tend to like that quite a bit on the way it's responding to us. So it will definitely be a game changer for all the client responses, interfaces that anybody will have within their industry, be the service center or your, front-facing tools for clients.
There's another question here. I'm sorry. There's another question here from Deepak, and if you've got more to add to that, Anju, I'm just trying to get through some questions. So Deepak's got a question on, what kind of recourse? I mean, how do you manage if indeed it offers the wrong answer? What is your process for that? I mean, a real life sort of scenario. And Deepak, add to that if you'd like.
Yeah. So one thing which when ChatGPT came out, I did was asked it to compare an offering of company A versus company B and present the result in a tabular format kind of thing. And it did a great job of presenting that. But then when we validated some of the information was incorrect in the sense it said, okay, this thing is offered for 3 years when it is not, that's not indeed the case and stuff like that. So we're just wondering what's the process or recourse for companies to ensure that, and this could be an external person who's posing the question, not an internal company person. So how do we ensure that correct information gets presented?
Yeah, I'll hop in here. So the key, I think, for enterprises versus consumers is you don't necessarily care what my model knows. You care what my models can do, and the knowledge that we've given it is how it understands the world. That is where embeddings, taking your corpus of data, your policies, your analyst reports, your whatever data, embedding that, it goes into a vector database, and you tell the model, hey, go look there for your answers. And it uses your corpus of knowledge. In the same way a call center agent would search something when they're on the phone with someone, pull out that piece and read it to a person. Think of it like the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But right now, people could be using it themselves to ask these kind of questions. And then if incorrect information is getting presented to them, is there some way for the broader populace this thing could be corrected?
Sure. So GPT-4 has much higher accuracy out of the gate. And then what you've seen, and granted, it got released literally less than a week ago, the browsing capability is the perfect answer, right? The reasons these models hallucinate is they're looking to provide you answers and can't find them. So if the model understands that it can't provide you an answer, it's going to go browse to look for something and go search for larger answers and use that to provide answers. I think it's a multi-pronged strategy to deliver you as close to an accurate answer as it can.
And a couple of things to keep in mind that these models are trained on data only up till 2020 or 2021, right? So anything newer will not come into the picture for what you're trying to do. Again, think about when you're thinking about your use case, think about in the fluency accuracy matrix, the question that you're asking is you're looking for fluency and accuracy both. That's when you go after the fluency for sure, but make sure your human partner is engaged on ensuring the accuracy. That's how I'm looking at least in my world.
There's a question here from Vishal, and Vishal, I've turned your mic on, or actually two questions, both on BPO use cases, business process optimization, but more interesting to me is sort of the talent question. And I wonder, Anju, if you could sort of speak to, I mean, you've been building AI teams and data science teams for a while. What are the right resources? And again, Vishal, I've turned on your mic. And by the way, we're not probably going to be able to get to everybody's question, but if you do raise your hand, I'll turn your mic on so you can ask your question if you feel like you've not gotten the proper answer here. So
yeah, just to add, Gamil, to my specific question, what I'm curious, Anju, if you can comment on general talent equation as you see sort of in the future. But I'm also struggling or sort of grappling with what's the future in terms of importance of specialists versus generalists. Generalists who can plug and play different components and capabilities together, and specialists who are deep in a certain domain, in a certain discipline of data science, what have you. What becomes more critical as organizations look to adopt these technologies in mainstream of their business operations? Just curious, anything you can share.
Yeah, no, great question. And I always think about it. That's why I brought the convergence of sciences, right? A generalist cuts across everything. It's a horizontal. What you're getting with ChatGPT is a really, really good generalist. It is a specialist as well, but it's a specialist. And there's data leakage that will happen given how big the training corpus is. But it's trained only up to 2020 or 2020, I believe 2021 for ChatGPT, right? So you need both specialist and generalist. The doctor example I gave is more of a specialist, which is using ChatGPT as a generalist to come up with new discoveries and inventions that they may not have been able to do it on your own. So it's starting to bring, there's still need for specialists. There's still needs for generalists, but I feel like when I think about my data science team as well, one of the things that I'm literally drilling into my broader data science team is you got to learn this. This is coming. Read, as all of us, we need to. I ended up writing a blog and I was telling Gamal, he knows this, is this discovery / invention is happening very fast. So make sure your organization is staying ahead of understanding what it is. The prompt engineer job code that has come in, we all need that. We all need what is the best way to ask a good question. Sometimes it's your next generation that is highly savvy in asking, one of the beautiful questions that we may not even envision. So prompt engineering, I feel like, is something that I definitely need in my team, where we are enabling our organization to ask the right questions.
So Michael Rapkin had a question on DALL-E and how the actual images get built in the building block model. And Michael, I think you maybe had some other questions as well. I've turned your mic on. I wonder if you wanted to ask your questions.
Well, Adam began to answer my question, I believe. But so Adam, in your picture example, those pictures didn't exist in a complete form, but I'm assuming it was assembled somewhere from the model, meaning there had to be some existing images that it put together, correct? Or is that incorrect?
No, I mean, those are all, like, it's trained on images that we licensed, and the model learns relationships between something and uses something called diffusion. Basically, it puts a whole bunch of stuff out there and starts removing points to unveil images. I'm going to dig up the blog post here that kind of explains how it works. That I think will probably be the best way to explain it. But they are all uniquely generated based on the input. It's not a search or anything like that.
Okay, great. And if Gamal, if I could get a 2-for-1 in here, I'd
Sure.
like to ask a second one. I'm interested in thoughts about, we've had the disinformation group assembled and then disassembled under Homeland Security. There seems to be a growing need for someone to moderate and to say what is right. Somebody just a few minutes ago answered a question about, they ran an analysis and they found out something wasn't correct. So as these models begin to produce results, how do we determine if it's factually correct or not? How do you see that working in the future? Because this is going to accelerate at a pace where it's going to be very difficult to keep up with. Is that factually correct? What the truth is? So I'm interested in your thoughts around that.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean,
Both of
no,
you, by the
please.
way.
Yeah.
And maybe Anju
No,
goes
this
first.
is-
It's, you know, if I'm an investor and I'm using Northwest Mutual, this may be really important.
Right now, I think this is where, as I said, the ethical and bias concerns will be mounting for all of us to make sure we are keeping tabs and ensuring that we have a strong body of governance internally within the company, which we have for all the AI models that we run, and also educating the regulators on what is right and what is not. So one of the articles that came out, and I don't remember where it was, but it said ChatGPT is a Democrat, right? And there was another one that said ChatGPT hallucinates. We have all heard that. Is it Democrat? It may be. If you ask those questions, you'll see what the responses are. It's trained by humans and it's run by, significant data that is staying out there. So we have this ethical and moral responsibility as humans to do the right thing and ensure that it is operating, which we fundamentally believe in, that it is operating within the bounds of how we are looking at the technology and whether it is well tested with the time and machine that we are incorporating it with.
So for ethical and moral humans and companies, that's a good answer and that's comforting, but there's a lot of bad actors out there, including nation states that can use this same technology. So maybe a thought on how do you see us defending against that?
Yep. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we deliver this stuff as an API and don't open source it and just get it out there. When we have as an API, we can see macro trends, we can do different things to address it. We can have terms of service of how it's used that we can actually enforce. And we think that that is critical. We stop all the time people using the platform in ways that were not intended or violate our terms of service. That alone won't be enough, but we think that that's like a really important place to start. And working with government entities to have like the right regulation is super critical, because right now the government doesn't know exactly how to handle all this stuff.
So there's a question here on whether there's tools to use to evaluate, ethical bias, any third-party tools, et cetera. This is from Gyun, and I've turned your mic on, Gyun, if you wanted to further on that one. And
yeah, I'm Gyun. Some of my partners have enough expertise in AI, and they put a lot of resources to develop some platform or any applications. But even though I think it seems like doesn't have any capability or not prepared to evaluate the models. For example, if there is ethical issue or bias in the models. So if any tools or solutions or criteria, methodology, something like that, that could be very helpful for them to prepare in advance.
Absolutely. So I can take that, Adam, because I work very closely in this space. So there's a couple startups out there. I'm not going to name them here, but there are a couple startups out there that you can partner with to, if you're deploying a model into production, that'll do the AI bias testing for you. There are law firms that are coming up with the data science arm that'll do the bias testing framework for you for proxy discrimination, disparate impact, both. And then there are multiple frameworks out there. So IBM has Fairness 360 framework that one can adopt, or Responsible AI has a framework as well. That's a company. It's a nonprofit company, Responsible AI, that drives a framework. So for enterprises, given if they're really serious about adopting AI or driving AI, make sure you have ethical and bias framework that you have developed, which includes any model that's going into production has to have a key model identification. It has a model risk management framework. It has a bias testing or proxy discrimination testing framework. So you have to have those frameworks in place. And the only way you can do that is by ensuring that you're working closely with your legal and your privacy and your government affairs team to help drive the adoption of these frameworks.
Anju, thank you. And Adam, I know he had to run to another call. Thank you, everybody, for joining the call today. As I mentioned at the outset, we are recording today's call. We'll be sending out content, both the slides and a recording, plus a summary takeaway. Both Anju and Adam will share their contact information for those that want to chat with them. Thank you all for joining, and everybody have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.